Alright guys, so what we're going to do today is we're going to practice some more with graphing a quadratic without a table. So I want you to go to page 36A. The back of it was 36B, and we're going to come over here to the right, and this is going to be 36C. And our learning target for this was I can graph a quadratic without a table. And we're going to walk through this step by step for about 4 problems, and then maybe less. And then you're going to have to work out some on your own. So the point of this is to reinforce the skills that it took us 3 days to do a quiz on, which is crazy. So we're not doing that again. This time we're reinforcing these skills. We're going to have another quiz tomorrow to make sure we get this. Does everybody understand? So let's start with problem A. I want you to graph y equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 3. Now, the first step that we do every single time is we look for axis of symmetry. To find our axis of symmetry, we use the formula x equals the opposite of b divided by 2 times a. And remember, we use this when it's in standard form. And the standard form of a quadratic is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So, it's the opposite of b. b right here is a 4. The opposite of 4 is negative 4. 2 is the number in front of x squared, so that's our a. I got excited and wrote a. So it's 2 times 2. And remember, this a right here, this 2 is always going to be here every time, but this a is always the number in front of x squared. Two times 2 is 4. And negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. Okay, so that gave us our axis of symmetry, which is our x, because it says x equals. And this is the x coordinate of your vertex. Alright, step 2, you identify the y-intercept. Now your y-intercept is always c of your quadratic, which is always the constant. So here our y-intercept is negative 3. And make sure you're writing these notes. Alright, the third step of this part before we graph is to use our axis of symmetry to find our vertex. Because this just gives us the x coordinate of our vertex. That doesn't give us the y, and since it's a coordinate, you need 2 points. So we're going to take this x and we're going to plug it back in here to find y. And it's a negative 1. So all I did was everywhere I saw an x, I plugged in negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 minus 3. And then we work it out from here. So we do 2 minus 4, which is negative 2. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. So again, this gives us the vertex. And we use the axis of symmetry to find y. And what I want you to start doing, which I noticed that we weren't doing, I want you to write this as a coordinate so that we know to plot this point. It's -1, -5. And we need to plot that point. Alright, now we're going to use these parts to graph. Now, my vertex is in -1, -5. So that means that I need more values on my y-axis than I do below my x than I do above. So I'm going to put my x-axis up here. Now, the first thing I do every single time, read the sign. I'm literally recording and I have to tell you to read the sign.
No,
Shut the door. Alright, so the first thing you do is you graph your axis of symmetry, which is at -1. So you go left 1 on the x-axis and draw a dotted line. And then we're going to plot our vertex, which is at -1, -5. And then you plot your y-intercept, which is at -3. Now, we don't have enough points here to make a parabola. So if we're 1 unit away here, we need another point that's 1 unit away this way. And we've graphed it. Now, a lot of you on your quiz, you drew this line, and then you just forgot to plot this point, and you went crazy. Now, the only time we have, this is a U, the only time we have a mountain is if the number in front of x squared is negative. This is positive, so it needs to be a U. If you need to pause the video, pause the video. Let's go to B. Oh my gosh. Okay. B, y equals 2x squared plus 2x plus 2. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is find our axis of symmetry. And the formula is the opposite of b divided by 2 times a. Now our b here this time, and remember, it's ax squared plus bx plus c. Our b is 2. The opposite of 2 is -2. Divided by 2 times 2. Alright, 2 times 2 is 4. And -2 divided by 4 is -1/2. So this gives us our axis of symmetry. Alright, step 2 is to find our y-intercept. And remember, y-intercept is always the c. So here it's 2. The third step is to use your x value from your axis of symmetry. Remember, this is the x value of your vertex. And plug it in to get y. So you have y equals 2 times -1/2 squared plus 2 times -1/2 plus 2. So all we're doing is everywhere we see an x, we're plugging in -1/2. Then we're going to do -1/2 squared, which gives us 1/4. And then we're going to multiply that by 2, which is 1/2. 2 times -1/2 is -1 plus 2. Alright, 1/2 minus 1 plus 2 gives us 1 1/2, or 1.5. Now, this gives us our vertex. And remember, we're going to write it as a coordinate. of negative 1/2, 1.5. Jesus. Okay. So now we have our axis of symmetry, we have our y-intercept, we have our vertex. We have everything we need to graph this. Our axis of symmetry is at negative 1/2. That's between it's between 0 and negative 1. So we're going to draw our vertical line right here. Remember, your axis of symmetry passes through the x-axis. Then we're going to plot our vertex. It's negative 1/2, 1.5. So you go left 1/2, up 1.5. And then your y-intercept is at 2. So if this is half a unit away here, you need to put this half a unit away here. Alright, let's look at problem C. And again, it's a U. It opens up because this is a positive 2. Hey, I don't know if those are going to fit in there. Okay. Alright, problem C. Gracias. Alright, this one does have a negative, so it is going to be a mountain. The first thing we do is our axis of symmetry. So x equals the opposite of b divided by 2 times a. Our b here is 6, so it's the opposite of 6 divided by 2 times negative 1. Alright, so we have negative 6 divided by negative 2. And this negative 1 came from the number in front of x squared, and this gives us 3. Step 2, we're going to identify our y-intercept, which is 4. It's this number every time. In the third step, we're going to plug in our axis of symmetry to get y. Now, it's a negative x squared, so we're going to put this negative outside of the parentheses. Three squared is 9, but it's negative, so that makes it a negative 9. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 4. Then you do negative 9 plus 18, which gives you 9. 9 plus 4 is 13. So our vertex, which remember we're writing as a coordinate, is 3, 13. And I'm going to graph this on this page. Now our vertex is 13 this time, so we're going to need our x-axis to be down here. Now we need to first plot our axis of symmetry, which was at 3. So we go right 3 and draw a vertical line. Then we need to plot our vertex, which is 3, 13. So go right 3 up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13. Then we plot our y-intercept, which is 4. Now we only have 2 dots. If it's 3 units away here, we need it to be 3 units away right here. And remember, we always use our axis of symmetry as our mirror, not the y-axis. It's this dotted line. Now you are going to use these 3 to work out the following problems.